Hey guys, welcome to another episode of Scaling with Demi. Actually, the second episode. If this is your second time, if you came after watching the first episode, thanks a lot. Love you. I hope you are getting a lot of value from this. And if this is your first episode, I hope you get some value from it and you get to like and subscribe and select that notification button down there. So basically, for the first time out, what we do here is talk about tech, startups, and basically how can you increase your chances of being successful as a tech startup, right? Mostly for the developers, it's kind of like on the technical angle. But what are the things you should do to increase the likelihood of your startup being successful? How do you go about the stack you should implement? And for this, I'm picking a particular topic to do a lot, which is monitoring. I mean, two mistakes startup founders typically make, or the tech guys are building startups, building for the startup founders, depending on, I don't know how your team is structured. But two mistakes you can make is one, not launching fast, or waiting for the feature to be perfect. Second mistake, not monitoring. And the first mistake is a little bit because, I mean, you want things to work, you can't, your startup's kind of like tied to your pride, your ego. You feel if users don't, if the product does not work as well as possible, users would not use it, which is barely the case. Users will use the product if it creates value for them, no matter how perfect the product is. I mean, except there is a competitor out there that's really trashing you. But if the product actually creates value for the users, they would use it. They would make a lot of complaints, definitely, which is great, which is good, which is a sign that they actually give a shit about your product. But then they would use it, they would stick around. If users don't care about your product, even if some buttons are misaligned or something, just forget it. Like, nobody's going to use it. Even if buttons are well aligned and misaligned. I did not make much of the first mistake when I started my company. So even though I could definitely spend more time fixing many of the technical issues, I just deployed it and test and put it in the hands of users as fast as possible. And it helped me grow our numbers a little bit. But I made mistake on the monitoring aspect. I wasn't monitoring shit. I actually did not even know what to monitor. I mean, I implemented Google Analytics because that's like the de facto, or that seemed like the industry de facto the analytics platform to use. And I was really just tracking what pages are either dropping off. I was seeing, oh, when user gets this page, they drop off at this next page, or they don't drop off. But maybe I was not good at it implementing. I probably wasn't good at actually using Google Analytics. Then there are some experts that know how to use it at scale. But it was difficult for me to really take a user and say, oh, this is why you are dropping off, and really connect the dots. And like, this user came into the acquisition funnel, or this user came to my website in the first place, or downloaded my application, but did not check out or did not register for this program, right? So why? What happened here? I mean, I've learned a lot. There are a lot better ways to do it. And this is mostly on the product angle, and even on the technical angle, right? There are things you want to be monitoring, things like, oh, API latency. I mean, it might look like, oh, at the beginning, it's not really a big deal, but you'll be shocked how a little uptick in user numbers could actually start slowing down your API significantly, depending on the tools you are using, or your database, your dual indexes. Those are things could really get messy real quick, or depending on how much loops you have, what kind of queries. So you really want to be monitoring these things. I've seen situations in which it was the downtime that now told me that, bro, the technical stack was shit. Like, database was slow, there were no indexes. We had large aggregate queries instead of smaller queries for some aspect, and some we had a lot of smaller queries where we could just aggregate, or we needed to just, I mean, you'll know a lot of that from monitoring. So I'm basically going to divide into three. There is a business metric you're monitoring, there's a product metric you're monitoring, and there is a technical metric you're monitoring. I personally love the product and the technical monitoring. The business will be fine. It's for business people. We're all business people, I think so. But for the business, just to get out to do as fast as possible, things like your revenue, obviously, your revenue, and your profit and losses, and your revenue again, how much money you're making. I don't think it gets better than that. For the product, which is where things start getting a little bit interesting, you want to look at, right, how many users are actually getting into the funnel and how many users are dropping off. Why are they dropping off? Is it because of problems in your acquisition? And by acquisition, I mean people that are actually visiting your website. And why are they? What is that? Are you acquiring the wrong people or the right people? Are you running some marketing that's targeting the wrong people? And one tool you can easily use to do this is actually Mixpanel. You can also use Amplitude, and I think there are a couple of other tools out there. Personally, I have more experience with Mixpanel. I don't know which is better, Amplitude or Mixpanel. But for this one, what you really want to monitor is the default every page visit, right? Everywhere the user goes, you want to monitor it with the IP address you're visiting from. the user details, you log it on Mixpanel. But more importantly, what you want to measure is user flow, user actions. So every button on your site, every video play, every activity, every interaction, you want to log it, especially at the early days. Now later, this might seem like a lot of information, which will definitely be useful for you, but you can start debating around the user data, shenanigans data. But at the early stage, you want to know, oh, I only have like 5 users or 10 users, right? Among the 10, only 2 of them ended up checking out. What flow did they take? Did they go to the wrong page before they got the right page? How long did it take for them to get from the beginning to the checkout? And the best way to know is just to implement something like the mix panel and update user. And you can take their user ID, look into the logs and see, oh, this user went to this page, clicked on sign in button, went to create account button, did this, did that. And these ones are dropped off, actually dropped off here. And I mean, you could just easily call this, oh, why did you drop off at this step? And they will tell you, oh, I was not interested, oh, this, that. And you can get a lot of insight about your product that way. It's quite easy. It's something that it actually solves a lot of headache for you, as opposed to just trying to make assumptions based on database results and say, oh, okay, this user has 5 others, but not these others. I'm trying to assume any drop off. You could just literally see it in a single thread. This is what the user did. And that's on the product angle. You want to measure the user flow, the user journey. On the technical aspect, which is my favorite, right? There are a lot of things you're measuring, things like the API latency. What's API latency? How long does it take for the backend or for the server to respond to me when I make a query? How fast is my website? How fast is activity on my website, right? You want to measure the you want to log errors on the site, right? Sometimes things just break, things crash, server crashes, right? You want to be notified of those. You don't want it to be. You don't want it's actually bad if it's actually dropping off because of this kind of technical errors and you don't know, because it means they might potentially care about your product, but because of something that is now very much within your control. I mean, the market might not so much be within your control. It's a lot of guesswork and experimenting. The technical stack is within your control. You can make things work right. And if people are dropping off because of this, it becomes a lot dicey. On the other end, don't forget I said that you want to launch a shitty product, right? You don't want to waste so much time because users might actually not care about it and you want to be able to iterate as fast as possible. So yeah, you're measuring the latency, you're measuring the errors, the downtimes, how slow your queries are, the performance, and you're optimizing for it as well as possible. And one very good tool I use for this, I mean, I've used Sentry, Datadog. I've not really implemented Datadog for a startup, but I've used Sentry extensively for monitoring the API latency and the error. And you can easily see which APIs are taking over a second. Typically, they should not take up to a second to respond, right? So you can see which APIs are taking, 900 milliseconds, 800 milliseconds, which is a lot to respond. And when you see that, and you know that, this might actually be slowing down the user experience significantly, so you want to correct that. Right? I mean, if you're also a product manager, these are things you actually look out to, right? And to speed up the site significantly. On the other end of the database, some queries might be taking longer than usual. You can easily, if you're using MongoDB Atlas, and you're paying for one of their tiers, you can easily see choose their performance advisor. I think if you're also using some other software, you can also see it. And I will probably just research some more software we can plug in to see the analytics. I think AWS has some monitoring software. But you can just say, which queries are taking too long? Do I need to aggregate some queries together because of it's a lot? Or do I need to even break down an aggregated query so that it can run faster while giving users space, while giving other connections space to actually run their own queries? So basically, I mentioned Mixpanel, I mentioned Sentry, Mixpanel for the product, Sentry for technical stack, and to see what's going on. I can do a presentation later on how to really go about it. If you want me to do, you can just make a comment in the comment section. That's it. For the business monitoring, your bank account will tell you. So they're probably business tools, but this is a tech video, so I wouldn't dwell so much on that. So yeah, let me know if there's any other thing you want me to talk about. I think that's all for this episode. In the next episode, we'll actually be talking about how did you deploy your stack to production in a way that scales, right? We'll talk about auto scaling, we'll talk about Docker, we'll talk about Elastic Cloud services, Elastic Container Services, AWS. We'll talk about how do you deploy code that scales. You can use serverless, you can use the server, but in a way that when you have a lot of users coming in, you are not blindsided. And when your server goes down, it can easily start up on its own without you having to stay awake. See you in the next episode. And don't forget to like and subscribe. Turn on the notification too. See you.